I'm going to start it off. If you're looking for a charming book to listen to while driving to your next outdoorsy adventure, try the kids' book, Hotel Belzar by Kate DiCamillo. Her books are some of my go-tos when I'm traveling by car. Kate DiCamillo's words I'm not kidding, they'll stir your heart. One of her latest books, Hotel Belzar, is no exception. It's the story of a girl, Marta, who lives in the attic of a once grand hotel. She must be very, very quiet, never to disturb the workers or the guests. She and her mother, the maid of the hotel, lived there, hoping for the return of Marta's father, who may have been lost in the distant war. One day, a mysterious countess arrives, who both enchants and frustrates Marta with a bunch of almost magical tales, whose meanings seem just out of grasp. You won't even realize you're in a car as you and Marta listen to the stories and wonder and yearn for more and more and ponder the meanings of it all.
No.
And Kate DiCamillo's Hotel Belzar. I'm not kidding, it's great. You should check it out. Greg. Greg's up next.
Okay, so the book that I finished a couple months ago is called...
Can you guys all hear him, or do you want to use the microphone?
You want me to use the microphone?
Raise your hand if you want the microphone.
Yes?
Well?
Yes.
Yes, yes. If you press it.
You can take it out of the holder, right?
That's all right. I need my nose. So anyway, the book that I want to talk to you about called A Walk in the Park. And this is by Kevin Fedarko. It is about a hike along the Grand Canyon, Colorado River in Grand Canyon National Park from the beginning and ending of the park. And the hike itself is midway between the rim and the river. So that's about 4,000 feet. So 2,000 feet above you is the rim, 2,000 feet below is the river. And of course, it's really not a trail. You're walking on, it's called the Esplanade for a lot of them. And it's, there's no water. There's really not even a trail to speak of. And I think what captures this is the subtitle to this book, which is called The True Story of a Spectacular Misadventure in the Grand Canyon. And we're all hikers here, so I'm sure that we've all been in situations where we have finished a hike and said, well, that was kind of a stupid thing. There's a lot of that here. Coming close to death. There's even, the adventures and how they get the food to them. There's a little chapter on how you go from a 60-pound pack to a 30-pound pack, including one of the things they do is they clip off the tags to the t-shirts to reduce weight. So it's well written. It's a page turner, really. Anybody who's been on a hike like this. And it's just filled with a lot of history and a lot of interesting things. Now, bonus book is that the inspiration for this book, which is published in 2023, so it's recent. So the inspiration to this book is a book called The Man Who Walked Through Time by Colin Fletcher. This one was written in 1968. Colin Fletcher is also known as probably the father of modern day backpacker. This one reads like a walk in the park. I mean, you He takes 2 months, 800 miles, no help, and a lot of the hiking that he does, he's only wearing a hat, boots, shoes, and his backpack. So he's had a great time. This one is 11 months, slightly longer, more than the 800 miles, because the borders to the Grand Canyon changed. Anyway, if you do decide to read both of them, I still suggest you do this first, and then read this background. It's called The Man Who Walked Through Time by Colin Fletcher. Thank you very much.
Talk about this book. It's not really an adventure book, but it's one I just read. It's by Kristen Hanna.
Microphone.
It's by Kristen Hanna. It's called The Nightingale. And I wonder if anyone has read this. I know at least one person had. It's right, because he gave me the book.
I'm not really with it.
All right. So what I really like about this book, it takes place in tells really the story about two sisters during the German occupation of France during World War II. And one of the sisters gets involved in the resistance, and she helps downed pilots escape over the Pyrenees from France into Spain. So that's the adventure part of the book. What I really like about her as an author, she writes really clean, crisp prose. So it's got enough information that you can understand the characters, you can understand the scenarios, you can understand what's going on, but it's not bogged down with a lot of excessive detail. You don't get, it moves really at a fast clip. And the other beautiful thing about her writing, she creates incredibly interesting, complex female characters. And so the two sisters in this book, one of them is, adventurous. She's the one who sort of gets involved with resistance. And the other one is a little bit more of a homebody. She's just worried about protecting her immediate family. So that's really one of the characteristics of her books, I think, is really interesting, well-developed, complex female characters. The other book I read that's really good is called, by her, is Four Winds, which again has a historical backdrop. It's in the Dust Bowl of the 30s. And again, incredibly strong characters. So I recommend her as an author, and I'm happy to give this book to anybody who would like it at the end, because in the tradition that they continue to pass it on.
You're reading it so fast that I can't read the author's name.
Kristen Hanna.
Kristen Hanna, and the title is?
The Nightingale.
Thanks a lot.
It was well written and well researched. I've marked some pictures in here. I can pass this around if you would like to look through it while I talk about it. I picked this book up because it was about paddling, but it was really about so much more. It was a history lesson and an exciting adventure. Man versus nature. Paddling the Colorado River through one of the most magnificent parks in the world, the Grand Canyon. John Wesley Powell was one of the first explorers of the Colorado River and the first government-paid explorer to determine the possibility of developing the West in 1869. He took 3 boats down the river and suffered many hardships, which is a story within a story.
Marshall, we can't quite hear you.
John Wesley Powell was one of the first explorers, and he went down the Colorado River to I lost my place, I'm sorry. He made the first trip and documented descriptions of the unexplored parts of the Grand Canyon. Fidel quoted E.B. White, "If a man is to be obsessed by something, I suppose a boat is as good as anything, perhaps a bit better than most. As you will see, the Dory guides help him." Martin Litton, an early activist, became interested in the Grand Canyon and Colorado River when a proposed dam would destroy a national monument. He researched Powell's experience on the river, and that led him to take several trips. Then he began exploring in his own small boats called dories. He began his own company in 1969 and hired river guides who studied the powerful Colorado River by tossing driftwood in the water and watching the way the driftwood behaved. Excursions lasted 5 days or more, and no two excursions were the same. The dory guides spent hours in their boats, practicing on the rapids or repairing their boats from knocks that they took during their run. The dory guides had to be expert repairmen as well as, because they needed to fix their boats many times on their excursions. White water is a lot different than the water in lakes and oceans because the rapids don't go in the same direction. They're very unpredictable. The guides ate, slept, and breathed rapids so they could navigate through them quickly and safely, which is why this quote is so appropriate. When the rapids are mentioned, I forget everything else. They cast a spell on me. Let's ride them all. Ken Rua, Steve Reynolds, and Rudy Petchik worked for Litton. They loved speed and they loved river life. They came back to work for Litton year after year, spending many hours trying to figure out the best way to ride the rapids. They liked to make speed runs down the river, but to do so they needed special permission from the park rangers due to the dangers posed by the rock. In 1983, the El Nino weather pattern created a perfect storm for the 3 dory guides to try and set a speed record on the Colorado River. They did not have clearance with the rangers to do this, and the rangers tried to stop them, but they ignored the rangers and they continued on, not knowing what lied ahead. I hope you will read this and find out what happens on their journey. It's called The Emerald Mile by Kevin Federico.
Okay, can everybody hear me? My book talk, and I don't have a hard copy because I read most of my books with my Kindle these days, so I didn't bring my Kindle with me. But anyway, the name of the book is called Not Without Peril, 10th Anniversary Edition, 150 Years of Misadventure on the Presidential Range of New Hampshire. I know it's a long title. If you're interested in the book, I can give you the details afterwards. The author is a gentleman by the name of Nicholas Howe. So this book, it has 17 chapters in it. It chronicles some of the tragedies and rescues that have taken place in New Hampshire's presidential range. And during the period specifically that the author talks about is from 1849 to 2008. And during that period, we can still hear you. Hello? During that period, there were 140 deaths. And maybe I better stand back here. There were 140 deaths and uncounted desperate survivals and rescues. So I'm sure some of you folks have hiked in the presidentials and White Mountains, right? We know that those peaks they can be dangerous. The number of deaths speak for themselves. And Mount Washington is actually considered one of the most dangerous mountains in the U.S. Predominantly because the weather is so unpredictable. I'm not going to use this.
We can hear you without
You
it.
can hear me. You know, the weather in the Whites is so unpredictable, and at one time Mount Washington had the world's record for the highest recorded wind speed, 231 miles per hour. I think that's been superseded by one of the weather observatories on one of the mountains in New Zealand, but 231 miles an hour is not something to sneeze at, right? So the first chronicle by the author was of a 29-year-old Englishman by the name of Frederick Strickland, who died of hypothermia in October of 1849. And back in those days, it took quite a bit of effort just to get to the White Mountains in the presidential range. Okay, folks described it. They go by stagecoach, and they described it as like driving a wagon up a brook bed. And there's a great picture in the book of what the stagecoach road looked like back in the 1860s. So Mr. Strickland, and Greg, you said it best, you know, sometimes people do things that they shouldn't be doing to get themselves into trouble. And that was the case with Mr. Strickland, okay? He started out with a guide on a bridle path up from Crawford Notch. And they started getting into deep snow on horses, okay? But they started getting in deep snow, and the guide said, we can't go any farther. It's too deep for the horses. We've got to turn back. There was one other person. There was a party of three. Well, the other two folks turned back, but not Mr. Strickland. He was bound and determined to get to the summit of Mount Washington, okay? And he had what's known in our lingo amongst us hikers as summit fever, okay? But anyway, the snow got too deep, and Mr. Strickland, he ended up making it to the summit, but then died of hypothermia. So that's just one of the 17 chapters in the book. And each one, you know, whether it's a tragedy or a rescue, each one, the author describes what contributed to the tragedy, whether it was starting too late, you know, not having headlamps, a change in the weather. Sometimes it might just be bad luck. Sometimes an individual might die 100 yards from the summit of Mount Washington, where there was back in times gone by. Now there's a visitor center up there, but there used to be a hotel up there on the summit of Mount Washington, and one gentleman died 100 yards from the summit, lost visibility, just couldn't go on. And not all the stories in Mr. Howe's book end in tragedy. There's a story of a gentleman who in October of 1855 spent 3 days wandering around the summit cone of Mount Washington. Eventually he was found. Of course, rescue parties go out. Eventually he was found, and he made it a point not to sleep because he knew it was cold, there was snow. He bivouacked, made sure he stayed awake because if he was going to go to sleep, he wasn't waking up. He knew that. So, you know, some of this is chronicled. Also, there's many dramatic rescues that are told about in the book. Have any of you heard of Joe Dodge, the Joe Dodge Lodge up in Pinkham Notch area? Right? I see a couple of folks nodding their head. A very, very famous individual, and he was a real stalwart back in the day, back in the 1920s and 30s, for conducting rescues, and many people owed their lives to Mr. Dodge and some of the rescues he undertook. So there's some great pictures in the book. Matter of fact, one of the pictures I really got a chuckle out of was a picture of the author's father, accompanied by 4 ladies hiking in the White Mountains. Mr. Howe's father was dressed wearing a white shirt and a tie, and the ladies were all in stockings and bloomers and nice-looking jackets. So I don't know about you, but I don't see much of that on the trail these days. Anyway, the book is very interesting. If you need more details on the author and the title, please see me. The author is Nicholas Howe, and the title is Not Without Peril, 10th Anniversary Edition.
Thank you, Rainer. I'm a children's librarian. And the next person up, I can't wait to hear her, because a lot of her suggestions end up in the library I work at. Jill, you're up. Thank you.
My daughter helps me because she and I are both interested in children's books, and I have two grandsons that are very young, 1.5 and 2 years old. So I hope you have little people in your life so that this is worth your time to listen to these, because I have about 10 books to share. The first one is, get my notes over here. The first one is Mama Loves You So by Terry Pierce. It's, they say it's for newborns. It's a board book, and in this book, Terry uses examples of nature to express how Mama loves you. So it starts, higher than an eagle flies, pure as sparkling snow, stronger than a stony peak, Mama loves you so. I'm bringing these books to you because they are outdoorsy themes, or they have to do with nature, and they're a way to introduce this to your little ones. And so all of Mama's examples of how she loves her little one come from nature. And the book ends with, Mama's love is like the air, everywhere you go. It wraps around and hugs you close because Mama loves you so. That's the first one. The second book is The Berry Song, and it's by Michaela Gove. And this is a story about, I wanted to look up the pronunciation of this, the Tinglet grandmother, and that is an indigenous person from the Pacific Northwest. And they share, she shares the berry song with her granddaughter as she teaches her to forage for food. They show great reverence for the land and offer gratitude. The pages are watercolor paintings. The berries sing their song to the grandmother and the little girl, and they sing back. It's, I'll give you an example of it. Well, here you can see a couple of the pages of pictures, and it's easy to read. It says, salmonberry, cloudberry, blueberry, magoberry, huckleberry, soapberry, strawberry, crowberry. The berries sing to us, glowing like little jewels. We sing too. So berry and bear know where we are. And in the end of this book, here is the little girl who's grown up, and now she's ready to share. It's all about, actually this made me think of our speaker from last month, Melanie, because they are foraging for food, and the grandmother teaches the little girl how to find all kinds of food out in the wild. And that's what this book is about. So, The Berry Song by Michaela Gove. It's a Call to Cottonhead book. Now, one thing about children's books, it seems like they give a lot of credit to mamas, that they often, the books are about mamas. And this book is Mama Builds a Little Nest by Jennifer Ward. The good thing about this book is it gives good credit to papas when they build the nest too. And there's kind of some humor, and this is written in a very cute way. I want to read a couple of examples. It shows great pictures of birds and their nests and how they live and build a nest. It gives some facts at the bottom, but then it has some little rhymey words to start it out. This one says, Mama built a little nest inside a sturdy trunk. She used her beak to tap, 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 the perfect place to bunk. And then down here it says, tree hole nests, also known as camping nests, are created by the male and female woodpecker. But now I want to show you, she does hummingbirds and explains that. And I like this one. Mama built a little nest. Well, actually, she didn't. She found one that another made, and then she laid me in it. Not all birds build nests. the cowbird, Wida, and the cuckoo find a nest built by another bird species. They lay their eggs in it and fly off, leaving their eggs in the care of the bird who built the nest. You learn, I mean, anyone can learn from this book. They show the beautiful nest and great illustrations of the birds. I just want to tell you about one more. This is where a papa there's a few in here where the papa has built the nest, and this one says, Mama built a little nest. My daddy helped out too. They placed my egg upon his feet. That's where I hatched and grew. And did you know the emperor penguin uses a living nest, the father penguin. The father uses his beak to roll the mother's egg upon his feet quickly so it doesn't freeze, and carefully so it doesn't break. There it stays buried under his tummy folds for about 60 days, warm and protected. Can you imagine standing there for 60 days protecting that egg? Anyway, it's a beautiful book that tells the story of all kinds of bird nests. Interest your kids in observing the birds. This little book I love. It's called You Are Loved by Suji Rim. And it's a it's lighthearted, but it tells how nature is loving you. Some examples are, it says, you are loved by the sun as it shines on your face so bright. Loved by the grass as it softens your path. Insects and birds and trees as they lift you up high. I like how it shows we're loved by the wind, how it plays with your hair. And in the end, let's see, give you the spoiler. Well, but most of all, you are loved by me. And so it's just one more book for affirmations for the little people. This is a little brown panda on the big blue earth, and it is by Tori Christie. And this is a book that helps little ones understand how big the world is. It starts out with the panda starts very big, okay? And it's talking about how he is a little round panda just eating his bamboo. And as the book goes on, he gets smaller and smaller because his world is getting bigger and bigger as it goes into from the damp ground into these muddy paths that go into the river, and then the family climbs in a river and passes terraces of rice and farms and villages to a bustling city, to an earth with blinking lights. And all of this is happening on the big blue earth where a little panda munches on bamboo. And I think there aren't very many books that help kids see that this is a big world out there and we're just this little piece of it. But I think this book does a decent job of trying to tell that. This is Planting a Rainbow by Lois Eller, and it's really a book about learning your colors. And it's a great book for gardeners. My daughter, who's a gardener, saw this and said, "Oh, I've got to get that for Silas." And it really just starts with purchasing bulbs and seeds from seed catalogs and planting these things, and then how they start to grow in the earth, and go to the garden store and get more things. They start to grow, and you see them all blossom in beautiful colors, and then in the end, they go fast. They have these pages where, they focus on one color at a time. Purple flowers, the blue flowers, and it names them all. And so if you're a gardener, it's a way to share all of that with a little one. This is a great book I got in Saranac, and it is a takeoff on The House That Jack Built. This is The Tree That Bear Climbed by Marianne Burkus and illustrated by Kathleen Wrights. I think with these children's books, I probably should be sharing the illustrator as much as the author, because They are all picture books, and they do a beautiful job showing the nature. And I'll read you kind of how this book comes to its end, and you'll get the idea. This is the bear who ate the honey made in the hive that's home to the bees that gather the pollen deep in the blossoms, that bloom in the sun, that shine on the leaves, that grow from the branches, that stretch from the trunk, that stands in the rain, that waters the soil, that feeds the roots, that anchor the tree, that he climbs. The bees were not happy, and neither was the bear. The bees are all surrounding him, but it builds page by page, just like the jackdaw. This is for a little bit older. It's an easy reader book, and I thought, that's not going to be that appealing, but I think this is a great book. I mean, when the kids are learning to read, the words are very simple, and this is just telling how each animal gets home. But the neat part about this book is it shows what their home looks like in the winter, excuse me. And so winter snow falls, winter wind blows, and each page is someone hops home, and someone stomps home, someone flies home. But it shows their home in pretty good detail for kids. On this page, someone swims home, and you kind of see how beavers get to their home underneath. You don't see that when you're walking or when you're outside, but it gives kids an idea of what their homes are in the winter. So I think it's a great, easy reader book if you're one that's always trying to bring nature into your kids' or grandkids' lives.
What's the title of that book?
Footprints in the Snow by Cynthia Benjamin. It's a Hello Reader Level 1, preschool and grade 1. And the last book is The Littlest Owl by Carolyn Pitcher and Tina McNaughton. And this is just a lovely book. This is the fourth owl born, and he is just the littlest. He's adorable. And they all talk about how small he is, and it takes him a long time to get to the food and to get to anything. And they all say, well, he's not going to be able to make it, and he just believes in himself, and he believes that he can do it. And every day he tries to fly like his siblings, and he can't do it. He flaps his wings, he tries his best, but he's too little. He just doesn't have the strength to do it. Until eventually at the end, there comes a time when there's a big wind, and Mama has told them they're all going to have to fly away because this tree is going to fall down, it's going to break. And he believes in himself, and he does it. But it's one of those books for helping you believe in yourself, even when you're the smallest, the littlest, and nobody else is believing in you at the moment. So it's a lovely picture book. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Does anybody else have a book they'd like to share? Come on up.
I was on your list. My bad.
No, appreciate it.
I'll see if this thing works, and if not, I can yell real loud. So, a couple of you, I'd be shocked if nobody in here has seen this book. Some of you have probably seen it or might own it. Any of you that are skiers, I know there's a few here tonight, have seen ski maps, who use ski maps. Probably half of the ones that I've ever looked at were painted by this guy named James Hughes. He did it for 35, 40 years. And this book, I guess, came out 5 years ago. I got it for Christmas last year. Thank you, Sue. But basically, it's not all black and white. The cover's just black and white. But this is a book of ski maps, ski trail maps, that this guy painted over the course of his career. And if you've ever looked closely at any of his work, he paints every tree, like every tree on the mountain, more or less appears in his maps. Just absolutely unbelievable detail. Actually, when you look at it, you'll wish that the book was bigger. You'll wish the maps were bigger, so you could look at all that detail, even more easily. But it's just really cool. I flagged a couple things in here. By the way, this is still in print. You can get it on Amazon, or you can get it directly from, there's a website that's basically dedicated to selling this book. So, just a couple examples. Like here's Steamboat and Telluride, and there's more maps of Telluride, I think on the next page. And just, again, incredible detail. Not a kid's book, it is a picture book. It does have, you know, some written sections that go into how he did his work, you know, how he ended up in this career and what his process was like and so on. But for me, it's just really neat, you know, to find, for some reason they put New York in the mid-Atlantic and Midwest. I guess we're not in New England. But here's Bristol Mountain. Here's Holiday Valley. So I know some of you folks have been to these places. This is a favorite of mine. This is Snow Ridge. This is the best little molehill you can ski around New York State. I'm calling mountains not in here, but second best. Hunter Mountain down in the Catskills, and so on. And there's, you know, it's broken down by region. And here's Sunday River in Maine. Just happened to open up to that one. I have not been there. Would like to. And here's Jay Peak. Highly recommend. But basically, yeah, it's a picture book of all these. There's a couple of hundred maps in here. The last section is works that he did for Snow Country magazine. This is James Nehu's illustrated nearly 40 maps for Snow Country magazine between its first issue in 1988 to its last in 1999. And so there's a whole section dedicated to those. A lot of them are sort of regional or just show different aspects of mountains that you might not see on the normal trail map. And again, you always are going to wish these were even bigger, but just really amazing. Highly recommend if you want to get a coffee table book.
What's the title again?
Yeah, oh sorry, I never said the title. It's The Man Behind the Maps. Legendary ski artist James Nehu. So yeah, Christmas idea, you know, someone you love, so thank you. I'm Jeremy.
Well, to wrap up, I got one more recommendation. Make sure to read the December Genesean. All these books will be in there. Thank you, everybody.
Folks, we're going to have a little break now. You're welcome to go out to the lobby. You know, we got coffee and some snacks out there. And we'll reconvene at 7:30, and that'll be the start of our presentation. Okay, so we got about, you know, just a little over 15 minutes before we get started with the program.
Yeah, you don't want to lose your